Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of our Q&A where we sit around in our orange chairs and we answer all of the questions that you guys are asking. But this week is going to be just a little bit different because sitting across from me is not Dave. We have Perry. And we're going to take the opportunity, since we are in the middle of this transition that we are working towards, where Dave is going to be moving into founding pastor, and you have been nominated as the candidate to replace him as lead pastor. We thought it would be a great opportunity for us to sit down with Perry, talk to him a little bit, get to know him a little bit more. A lot of you already know a lot of his background and his story, but several of you don't. And so we thought it'd be a great opportunity for us to dig in and get to know Perry a little bit deeper and a little bit better. Perry, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been a busy season for sure, but we're making it happen.
Yeah, we're going to jump into this real quick and go a little bit deeper and give you an opportunity to share your story, share your testimony, and talk to us a little bit about God's calling on your life, your plans for your future, where you feel God leading you and leading this church. So we're going to jump into all of that. Real quickly, before we begin, we do want to encourage you to continue to ask your questions. And we know that you guys have questions, especially surrounding this transition that's been coming up, the new building project that we have, things that you might be wrestling with in your own personal walk with Jesus, things you might be reading about, questions about the church. We encourage you to ask all of those questions. You can submit those questions at our website, my3c.org. Just click on Ask a Question. All of the questions that come in that way are completely anonymous. We don't know who is asking them. So we field all of those questions here on the Q&A, and we do it in a way that hopefully is giving you the answers to that you're looking for. If you need direct contact with us, if you want us to personally respond back to you individually, you're going to have to scan this QR code or go to our website and click on Connect. That's going to take you to our Connect card. It's a great way for us to just get your information. You can ask the question in there, and we will get somebody to get back to you as quickly as we can. Those are the two ways that you can ask questions here at Connections, or you can always come on Sunday and talk to us in person. We would love that as well. All right, Perry. A lot is happening here at Connections.
Yep.
If somebody is joining us for the very first time, though, right now, and has no context of what's happening, give us just the 30-second synopsis of where we find ourselves right now and why this is a good thing.
Yeah, so, well, as you mentioned, our lead pastor, Dave Sanders, is going to be stepping into a new role called the founding pastor. He's like, I'm not retiring. I'm still involved, but we're in this process of replacing him. And this is good because he's getting older. And so there is going to be a point where he's going to have to retire. He's not there yet, but his goal, his desire is that there could be a transition of leadership that is smooth, that is not an abrupt change, one where he can still be involved with what's going on and be a part of that process. And so it's unique for us because a lot of times when a pastor leaves, a senior pastor, it's either because they just totally retired and they're riding off into the sunset, or unfortunately, a lot of times it's because they're leaving for maybe a better opportunity or a different opportunity or possibly something scandalous. It doesn't have to be anything sinful. It could be a different in leadership opinions or it could be, who knows what it might be. But typically in any of those other situations, that transition is relatively abrupt. And even if it's a very smooth transition from, hey, I'm retiring, I'm moving off into the sunset, and there's a new guy coming in from another church, that's still an abrupt transition because this is a new leader that the people of the church don't necessarily have a relationship with. And he or she might bring a totally different vision and mission to the church as well, because they really haven't been a part of what is going on. So that's why the way we're doing this, I think, is a good thing, or at least the way we're trying to do this. And so we are now in this position where we are presenting me as this possible candidate and giving all of you the opportunity to ask questions, get to know me more if you don't already. But I've been here for 4.5 years now. So most of the people who call this church their home, they do know me and they do have a pretty good idea of who I am. But it is a different role. It's still a different person in that role of lead pastor. And Dave's been doing it for a very long time. So it's understandable that people might have concerns or at least curiosity about, what I might be doing differently or who I am or how this looks for the church as a whole.
Yeah, and I want to touch base on a lot of that this evening as we jump into this, because I know that there are those questions out there. Even if we're not getting them all, people are wondering, people are thinking.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we'll spread some light onto that this evening as we talk. But I want to back this all the way up. And I want to, if sometimes people know you, they recognize you, they see you, they've interacted with you, but sometimes it's hard, especially if your exposure is only on that Sunday morning, to get to know the real Perry.
Right.
So let's back this all the way up. Why don't you just share us a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, how you came to put your faith in Jesus Christ, where that's led you, and kind of like tell us the story of Perry all the way up until you came to Connections.
That could be a very long story, but I'll give you an abridged version for sure. And Dave mentioned a little bit of this a couple Sundays ago, but I know that there's some people who probably weren't there or didn't hear it. I was raised in a Christian home. My parents were actively involved in ministry. My dad was a director at a Christian camp, and that was probably the best place I could think of for a young boy to be raised, because it was just wide open spaces. There were kids having the best week of their entire year every single week during the summer, especially. There were these college kids who were on fire for Jesus, leading these kids, and I'm looking up to them. And Did
you guys live on the campground?
Yeah, we lived on the campground. The way it was set up is our house was kind of like on the edge of the campground, and so it was at one of the entrances, and then you'd have to go down this long driveway to get to the actual camp. And so, I got to take care of the horses that we had at this camp, and I got to take advantage of basically everything that the camp had to offer, like the water slide and the trails and the massive amounts of woods and the full court basketball courts, and like all the things that you think of at camp. I got to take advantage of those all the time. Got to participate in all the different weeks of camp. I'd always get to kind of stay with my favorite counselor for that week, even if the kids were much older or whatever. It was just a great experience. It was a lot of fun. But on a spiritual side of things, I was surrounded by people who knew and loved Jesus. And so that made an impact on me. But also every single week, if you guys know anything about summer camp at a Christian camp, it's typically highly evangelistic, which means they are going to be telling those kids about Jesus, why he came, and trying to convince them to give their lives to Jesus. So every single week, I would hear a very clear message of who Jesus is, why he loves us, why we should follow him. And that was just kind of a natural thing to me. In addition to that, the church we attended, my uncle was the pastor. So it was like this huge family affair. And I don't know what it was, but one Sunday morning, it was either something in Sunday school or something my uncle preached about, or it was just all those messages about the gospel that finally made sense to me. I realized in the moment, man, I'm a sinner who needs Jesus. And I prayed that prayer that I had heard led and said so many different times. And I believed it in my heart. Like, this is the moment where I'm going to give my life to Jesus. I was only 6 years old though. So I was pretty young, had that childlike faith. And just continued to grow very slowly in what my understanding was from there. We then moved quite a bit after that because my dad became a pastor, and he served at 2 different churches. We had a couple years in between where we went back to their hometown of Colon, Michigan. What a great name.
Yep.
So we traveled, we moved quite a bit, and that was actually really difficult for me as a kid, just because I would make friends, we'd be there for a couple years, and we move. Then I make friends, we'd be there a couple years, and then we move. And so finally, we ended up in Marcellus, Michigan, which is not far from here. It's only about 15 to 20 minutes southwest of here. Tiny little town. Some of you might be from there, but if you're not, probably the only reason you'd go there is either you're playing them in some sort of sporting event with your school, or you have some sort of farming related business.
Yeah, I can't. I don't think I've ever been to Marcellus.
And realistically, there's not a whole lot of reasons outside of those to go there. So, I mean, it was a very small community. I enjoyed it. It was good for me. But that's where I graduated high school. It was during that time specifically that I probably had some doubts in my faith, and started to question some things. I began to question what I was hearing on Sunday mornings and kind of wondering, well, this is what my parents say, but is that really what the Bible says? Is the Bible even true? All that kind of stuff. I had some really good youth pastors at that church and another local church that helped pour into me. They answered my questions in an incredibly non-judgmental way, but they also did it in a way where they weren't just giving me the answers. They were encouraging me to go to the Bible and other sources and research. Like, okay, you have questions about other religions? Go check them out. See what you actually think about those. Like, go check out the history behind all of this stuff. Like, they really were encouraging me to make my faith my own. And it was through that process that really my faith was reaffirmed. And I felt much more knowledgeable, not exhaustive at that point, but much more knowledgeable about why I was a Christian. In many ways, I rededicated my life to Jesus then. And so it was a really good time for me. Every stage of life I enjoyed, minus the moving. Every single stage of life I enjoyed, minus the moving. But that period of time in high school was probably the most formative for my spiritual journey, just because it really solidified my faith in Jesus. From there, I went on a mission trip to Mexico. During the middle of, it was between my junior and senior year of high school. I went for a week. And while I was there, I just felt compelled by God to commit to going back to that same ministry for a whole summer. This was a drastic change of plans for me. My entire high school career, if you call it that, was wrapped into sports. And my plan was to go to Cornerstone University and walk onto the basketball team and earn an athletic scholarship at some point. And in order to do that, the best step I could have taken, and I was invited to do so, would have been to go to the summer workouts for basketball. So I had to make a choice. Do I continue to do the best thing for this athletic endeavor, or do I listen to what God has to say and go on this mission trip for an entire summer? And I just felt very strongly that God was saying, nope, I need you to come back here for the summer. And I said, okay, God, that's what I'll do. And in the back of my mind, I was like, but I'll be able to play basketball and work out and stay in shape and all that kind of stuff while I'm here. It didn't quite work out like that.
Too many tacos, huh?
A lot of tacos. And there were just a lot of other responsibilities that I had to do. Like, I couldn't just go and only do the sports ministry stuff, which was a big thing that I was attracted about. There's a lot of other responsibilities, and most of it was behind the scenes ministry. And a lot of that ministry I did not enjoy. It was not like, oh man, I really like being the bathroom king, like, which is what they called the staff person who was leading that. And that was one of my jobs. I didn't like roaming around the middle of the night in Mexico telling teenagers to stay in their tents. Like, I had to do that. Like, I had to cook for all these kids and like all that kind of stuff. I didn't enjoy all of that necessarily. But it was super formative again, because it made me realize ministry is bigger than just what you see on a stage or what you see maybe at a camp where the person's leading the activity or something like that. There's all these other things that happen. And I knew that, but I never had to be that person. I always got to be the person who enjoyed it.
Right.
Or got to lead up front. And so that was really important. I think God wanted me to learn, like, hey, there's so much more to ministry than what you think of. You need to learn it. You need to be humbled. And it was a humbling experience. I really learned to accept leadership decisions, even if I disagreed with them. Not that things that were wrong, but just different. Like where it was like, oh, I wouldn't do it that way. But I wasn't in charge. So I had to do it my way, or I had to do it their way. I couldn't do it my way. And so that was really good for me. The entire time I was there, I was praying like about ministry. I'd felt like maybe God was leading me towards ministry. I really, honestly, I was going to college to Cornerstone University. I knew that, but I had no idea what I was really going to study. I had signed up to study math, like because I was good at math. Like that was it. I was like, what am I going to do with that? I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And so I was like, well, maybe I'm going to be a foreign missionary instead. Maybe I'll just completely change my major. And while I was there, I really enjoyed aspects of the ministry. I saw the value in it, but man, I just was convicted that everything that was done there could and needed to be done in the United States. It seemed like there was a lot of effort being done there to spread the gospel to people, but I didn't know of anything quite like that happening in Michigan. I know today that there are some things like that, but not to the breadth and scale of what was happening there in Tijuana. Like it's just not. And so I was like, all right, well, God, I feel like you're making it very clear. Like this needs some sort of ministry needs to be done in the U.S. too. And I kind of felt a call away from foreign missionary or missions to doing ministry somehow here in the United States. Still didn't know exactly how that was going to work. Really had no clear direction on what I was going to do. By the time I got to Cornerstone that semester, I changed my major to be one in education. Still going to be a math teacher, but that was what I was going to do. I had a ministry minor, so I had a double minor. But after the first semester, I changed from math because I failed calculus.
Oh no!
And again, good learning experience. I didn't know how to study. I didn't have to study in high school, so I had to learn how to study and do all that kind of stuff. And that's super important for this job now. Like, there's a lot of studying involved, and so I had to learn that. I became a history major instead. But the classes I really enjoyed the most were my ministry classes. And I really enjoyed that. Throughout my college experience, I dabbled in so many different types of ministry as a volunteer. I know sometimes high school students and college students, they say they're so busy. They're not. They have so much free time to do things that they want to do if they want to do it. And I took full advantage of it. I got to do all sorts of great stuff. I went on mission trips. I was involved with several different local ministries and helped with all sorts of different things. And what was great about it is I got to experience so many different cultures and so many different ways of doing ministry. I went on a trip to Toronto and got to see one of the most diverse cities and just experience all these different types of ministries where they were trying to reach people from totally different cultures and backgrounds. Being from Marcellus, not a whole lot of diversity, and so I got to experience that. And going to school in the Grand Rapids area, there were a lot of ministries there that gave me just a new insight into the lives of people. I was involved in homeless ministry. I was involved in an after-school program for inner city kids. I got to work at a summer camp for kids who were at risk, especially mainly they were from the inner city. And I got to spend time with them. I ended up working at a place called Wedgwood Christian Services. It's a faith-based program for kids who are either a step away from juvenile detention or their parents did something bad and now they're in the foster care system and they were all thrown together. Not a great ministry model, to be honest, but it was a need. And I got to experience that. I got to volunteer with my local church at Ada Bible Church for youth ministry. And man, they poured into me to help me just learn how to disciple and teach scripture. And so that was a cool opportunity. And all of this was happening as I was getting my degree to become a teacher. And that's kind of what I thought I was going to do. I figured that I'd be a teacher and I just would be heavily involved in local ministry through my local church, kind of like almost like Paul did, where he was building and making tents and selling them to fund his own ministry. And I kind of was like, all right, I think this is what God wants me to do. I can still make a huge impact on kids on a day-to-day basis. I could provide for my family. Jenna and I got married. That's my wife, by the way, Jenna, if you don't know. We got married right after I got done with college, basically. We moved to the other side of the state, and I taught at a charter school there for a year. And it was a good experience. It was great. In fact, I would have stayed there longer, but literally a month after we got married, my wife got pregnant. That was not the plan. But as soon as she got pregnant, we were like, you know what? We kind of want to be closer to family now that we've got a little one coming along the way, someone who can help us a little bit and be there for us. And I took a massive pay cut to go and work at a Christian school called North Point Christian on the north side of Grand Rapids. And I was only part-time there. So then I worked part-time at Wedgwood Christian Services again to make ends meet. And it was a really great experience. It was tough. Financially, we barely made it work. We were piecing it together, but I saw God move in some of the most amazing ways during that time. I think that was necessary. Help grow our faith.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we don't have enough money to pay the gas bill and buy groceries. What do? We bought groceries and diapers and let the gas bill go. And then we call the gas company and like, oh, someone else paid your gas bill. What? The next month, same thing. What do? There's a check in the mail for the exact amount that we need to pay that gas bill. It was just really cool to see God work in a time where we had little. And God used that in a lot of ways. One, he used it to make us move, because I was like, I had another little one on the way, and I'm like, I can barely afford to provide for my wife and my one son. How am I going to do it with two? But really, he kind of broke me for teaching, to be honest. When I was at the Christian school, everything I taught could be connected to Scripture. Conflict between students, right? What's God have to say about this? How should we be treating each other here? Coaching at that school, I could connect everything to, we should be playing the best we can because we want to worship God through our actions. Everything could be connected to my faith. And I went from there to a public school. I actually went back to my alma mater in Marcellus, and immediately I was hit with, a lot of the tools that I have for managing my classroom and for making connections with these kids are now gone. So I had to relearn that a little bit, but more than anything, I just realized that there was something missing. I'd be having these conversations with these kids who were coming from terrible backgrounds, who were just having huge struggles in life, and I'm not supposed to tell them about Jesus.
Yeah.
That's what they need. Yes, they need an adult who loves them and will care for them anyway. But ultimately, the true fix that they had was a relationship with Jesus.
Right.
And I wasn't supposed to tell them about it. I still took liberties at times and took risks, literally a risk that could have been my job from time to time if I felt like I had the right relationship with that kid or the right opportunity presented itself. But it really made me feel like there was something that I should be doing more, that these kids, people in general, they need an education, but they need way more than that. At the time, I was attending Lake Center Bible Church, which that's where you and I met.
Yep.
Yeah.
We go way back now.
Absolutely. And I had been there. We had been attending there basically almost the entire time I was at Marcellus. We probably searched for a church for about 6 months. So we had been there probably about 3.5 to 4 years. And through that, we were involved in a lot of different ministries like we always were. We were involved in kids ministry. We were involved in small group ministry. I helped coach a softball team there once. Like, I just did whatever. Ended up being a deacon. They asked me to consider being an elder, but I was like, I think I should be a deacon first, which I didn't realize it completely, but that just meant you took care of the building. And so there was some leadership there, like identifying other people to help with that and that sort of thing. But yeah, so I was just kind of doing whatever the church needed for the most part. Was pretty actively involved, and apparently I made an impression on some people, because after 4 years, the lead pastor and the executive pastor at the time gave me a call, and they said, "Hey, your name's been given to us as someone who might be able to do this thing that we need here at the church. We're looking for a connections pastor." And basically that role is very similar to what I've been doing here. You know, I was going to be involved with overseeing the first impressions team, you know, the greeters, the ushers, the parking team, all that kind of stuff. I was going to be involved with helping people take next steps in their faith. You want to get baptized, go see Perry. You made a decision to follow Jesus, go see Perry. If you want to be in a group, he's going to oversee the groups and help you get connected with people here. And I helped with teaching on Sunday mornings to some extent. Looking back, I know that I learned a lot there. I know that not all those messages were the greatest. I tried some wild things, like I even dressed up like General Patton one Sunday. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I vowed to never do that or anything like that again. Because I was roasting, first of all. And second, it just felt gimmicky. But, you know, I cut my teeth on like different teaching styles. And our senior pastor at the time really took a special interest in me. We existed. I don't think people understand like how we worked together when I was first there.
Yeah.
We were in a room, which you guys don't have reference for it. It was about the same size as this room. Maybe a little bigger.
I don't even know if it was bigger than that. But within the space that you can see on camera, we had multiple desks, and there was at least 4 or 5 people in just this space working. We worked on top of each other.
Absolutely. How many were there? Were there 7 of us?
I think there were 7 or 8 just in the one area.
I mean, literally, I'm sitting at a desk, and right behind me is the senior pastor. And right next to him is, I think, the executive pastor. And right on the other side of him is you. We were literally packed like sardines in this room. And for some of you, you might be like, well, that sounds terrible. Well, it wasn't. It was one of my favorite work environments that I've ever been in, because it forced us to work together.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't not work together. If you needed privacy, you either had to go to a different room or throw your headphones in. Like it was one or the other. And it was really nice for me to just be able to turn to the senior pastor and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or what should I do about this? And so he was right there. And then that really helped. And so I got to just really learn how to lead people while I was there.
Yeah, I think that environment really helped shape how we both evolved in what we want from a working environment in a church world, this collaborative nature that we've been able to create. Mm-hmm. And we have that here now. I mean, our desks are a little more spread apart than this.
It's more comfortable.
It's a little more comfortable. But what it allows is it allows me to know what's happening in kids ministry or youth ministry or whatever, and not because I need to make decisions for them, but I can support them and I can encourage and be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really was formative too, right? Like that helped develop how I like to lead and work with other people in ministry. I mean, it truly was a team approach for the bulk of the time that I was at that church. I also learned some things not to do at the church. When our staff started to feel like the lead pastor and the executive pastor were isolating themselves, that wasn't good. Like, and it really was. You and I can look back and say, we don't know exactly everything that was happening behind the scenes with that, but that's when things started to not go as well. And that doesn't mean that it would have been all fixed or whatever. We don't know. But over time, that church eventually, the leadership structure above you and I ended up crumbling. And the elders of the church decided to merge with another larger church in the area. And they didn't hire any of us as pastors. Some of us didn't even try.
Nope.
and I think that was the best. I think that was for the best for us. I think it was the best for me today as a person. Because I learned a lot even in that period of time. I learned what not to do. I learned some things that were good to do. I did everything I could in my own personal power to try to help that church survive that situation. And I learned very quickly, there's only so much a person can do. And there's a point where you are trying to do too much and you need to let God like kind of do things as well. I learned how to balance ministry life with family life in a negative way. Like I had to learn the hard way where it was starting to impact my family. And I didn't truly learn that balance until we moved down south to Myrtle Beach, which is where I spent the next about 4.5, 5 years in ministry, doing a very similar role to what I do here and what I did at Lake Center. But I had more experience now, and I had my teaching style had started to take shape. You remember back to the Lake Center days, the youth pastor and I alternated every single Sunday until the church finally merged with the other church. And so that forced me to just speak more. And that's what I needed. Like I needed just more opportunity to do that. And I think that helped me. And then going to Beach Church with other seasoned leaders who have led a much larger church. That church started out at 850. By the time I was done there, it had hit like 1,600 people. And so that is a different style of leadership. You can't lead over 1,000 people the same way you led a church of 500 or 600 or whatever we ended up at Lake Center, 800, I think at the highest. And so it's just different. And so I learned new skills. I learned new abilities. And again, that senior pastor took me under his wing. We would meet together weekly, just me and him, where he would ask me how I was doing, but he also would pour into me on the different skills of how to be a pastor, how to lead the different ministries that I was leading, and how to lead people. And so he'd give me feedback on my messages. He'd give me feedback on how I was interacting with different conflicts or things like that. And, I learned a lot there as well. And eventually we went through a restructuring there at some point where I was always a part of the staff leadership team. But when we went through this restructure, that amount of people was decreased. I remained on the staff leadership team. I then had to oversee, I think it was like 5 or 6 different staff members that reported to me. That was a different thing. At Lake Center, I didn't have any staff people reporting to me. It was all volunteers. And so now I'm having to help these other people who are paid part-time or full-time salaries. And, that is a different level of leadership and a different type of leadership. But it was a really good opportunity again. And we experienced some really great seasons of ministry there that I think God used in a lot of ways. A hurricane didn't actually hit Myrtle Beach. It hit just north of Myrtle Beach, and it just dumped a ton of water, and all those rivers flooded. And actually, Steve brought a group of people from here down to help serve us down there, and I got to help MC all of that and make the connections that were needed. But a cool experience to be able to pivot and help the community in exactly the way they needed. I think that was a big preparation for what was going to come for all of us in COVID. And that was a wild season for churches. And, a lot of churches struggled during that season. One of the similarities between what happened at Beach Church and what happened here is rather than having that season hold us back in any way, we knew that this was an opportunity to serve our community and serve the people of our church in a new way and perhaps in a greater way than we ever did before. And that really, again, it just gave me an opportunity to grow as a leader. It gave our church an opportunity to grow our influence in the community. But God also used that season to make it clear, hey, you need to go somewhere else. At the time I felt a really big call to just kind of almost like step up in my leadership, not necessarily to become a senior pastor at that point. I wasn't very similar to when I was in college. I wasn't exactly sure how that would be. I was feeling this call that I might be a lead pastor at some point. So I applied for some of those jobs, had some interviews with that. I applied to some executive pastor jobs. I thought I dabbled with that a little bit. But what ended up really sticking out to me actually were some jobs where they were looking for someone who could come in and potentially become the lead pastor. Where it's like, hey, for those of you who don't know, there are a ton of senior pastors right now who are retiring because they're in the boomer generation. There is a shortage in ministry leaders because of the boomer generation. There's just more of them than there are of all the rest of us. And so that you actually posed that question to me. You said, hey, have you ever thought about coming back to Michigan? We are looking for someone who does the things that you do, and we're also looking for someone who might be able to fill Dave's shoes when he decides to stop being the lead pastor. None of it was guaranteed. None of it was like, this is what's going to happen, because that would be a foolish thing to do anyway. But my initial reaction was, yeah, I really don't want to go back to Michigan. We loved it down south. Like, we loved the weather. We loved the people. Our home was down there. But I remember telling you, but I do feel like God is moving me. So I'm willing to have a conversation with Dave. And I don't know how much you've shared of your own story, but it reminds me of your story a little bit, where it's like, at first I wasn't interested. But then after a while, after having conversation after conversation after conversation, I became more warmed up to the idea. And I came up here for an interview. And when I first came, I was a little shell-shocked by how few people were actually attending. This was a deja vu moment for me, because you guys really, I think when I visited here, it was your first Sunday where you were doing everything normally. Everything before that, it was like you guys had tried to do like social distancing in the classrooms and stuff like that. And this was the first full Sunday where everything was normal. So as a result, there weren't that many people who were like, yep, we're comfortable coming back. I went through the same thing at Beach Church, where it's like, oh, well, like 25% of our people are here. Okay, now 50%. Now, and you're kind of seeing how that happened. But still, just overall, the church was smaller. And I remember having a conversation with God. This is similar to Dave's story, where I was like, God, do you really want me to go from this really large church to this really small church? And Jenna and I were actually walking on the beach, and we were having this conversation with God separately, and we came back together, and we both clearly felt like God was saying, don't call my church small. Basically, if this is where you're called to be, it doesn't matter how many people are attending there. And we kind of both felt like the size of the church had no issue at all for us anymore. And it really was more like, how is God going to use us? Does God want to use us here? So I went through the interview process, met with everybody, and I quickly got excited about the possibility. because what I saw was a church that was doing a lot of things really, really well. But the things that it was actually missing were the things that I did really well. So I was like, God, I can see myself fitting here. Like, this works. And so, long story short, we accepted the position, and we've been here now for 4.5 years, and it has been a great season of ministry. Our family has connected here. I remember when I was interviewing, and this is something that you may have heard little hints of this throughout my story. I have always wanted to be able to plant my flag somewhere. I've always wanted to be able to call a place home and stick with it. But my entire life, I've been a nomad. And finally, I feel like this could be it, unless y'all pull the rug out from under me. And then, but this could be it. If everything goes according to plan and that sort of thing, like, I think, and that was kind of what I was feeling. Even in the moment where I was taking the position, I was like, you know what? I think God's bringing us back here for a reason. Even when we left for Myrtle Beach, God had put this community on my heart. I thought about starting a new church here and just planting one before I took the position in Myrtle Beach, but I didn't feel like I was ready, and I wasn't. I'm glad I didn't do that now. But here I am back now in the same area, making so many connections with people that I already knew, but also making so many connections with new people in this area. And people here need Jesus. They need to develop their faith. And I have been so excited to be a part of it. And it's been so awesome to see how God has blessed it.
Yeah.
I think the first Sunday that I came here, it was we had somewhere around 150 to 180 people. And obviously church is not all about the numbers, but now we're doing 3 services, and we're averaging right around 600 people. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
To just see how God has used all of us together as a team, the volunteers, the whole church. It's been very cool to see how God has blessed the mission of this church, which was the attraction in the first place. Knowing that I could be a part of this mission and make an impact towards it. So that's a long story long, I think.
That's all right. It gives us a lot of insight into your background, who you are, how God has used you. Let's dig into a couple of things, just so people can get a little broader concept. You mentioned that when you came here, there was like a void. There was this need that we had, and you're like, I see myself fitting perfectly. And obviously, we saw that too. You came in, you've stepped into this role to connect people to their purpose and to plugging them in. Like, you've really, really adapted into this role. During this time, as you found your niche here, walk us through this, what God has been doing in your heart and your mind to prepare you to potentially go from that position, which we know you're extremely gifted for, into a different position. Help us walk us through that transition that has been happening in your life.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, there was some intentionality from the very beginning. Like, this was, again, not guaranteed, still isn't guaranteed, but it was kind of like hey, we think you also have the gifting and the ability to potentially be a lead pastor. And I was feeling that same pull as well, which is why I had applied to some of those jobs. But the whole idea was, let's give the church and the staff and Dave a chance to get to know you more. You knew me pretty well because we had worked together, but it had been 5 years since we had worked together.
Yeah. Even though we stayed in
we stayed in contact for sure. Yeah. Like, Steve and I and another pastor were the 3 people who's probably stayed the closest together, and so since then. And so anyway, so there was some intentionality from the get-go, and really it came from Dave and me being just intentional about making sure that we were meeting at least monthly, sometimes more often. Occasionally we'd have to miss or whatever, but to just continue to learn, what is this church all about? What are the different leadership structures? Because you know how that is. Every church is different. How can you improve as a leader, as a teacher, as a communicator? And so Dave put a lot of effort into that as well as all those previous pastors and people who've been pouring into me. And so he and I, for the first couple years, I would say it was very specific to just general leadership development. We went through a season where he was kind of challenging all of us to like read our own books, and then he would get together with us and discuss them together or podcasts. And so we did that for a little while. And so the books he had me lead were very specific to those things. I'm not sure what he had you do, but whatever, and then we've been in a season quite often since then of it's been more like we're reading stuff together collectively for general leadership development and stuff like that. But even in the midst of that, he and I have continued to get together and just talk about how we could grow and how I could grow into potentially fulfilling this role. So the first 2 years, it was definitely just general, more develop me as a leader. Since then, so for about the last 2.5 years or so, it's been a bit more specific on, okay, here are the things that need to be done or maybe changed, not necessarily changed, but just developed to become the lead pastor here. All right, here's the timetable for when that could happen. So there's been a lot of discussions, and I know that that's kind of the same time when he and the elders really started talking more seriously about this and the possibility of it. A lot of prayer, because it wasn't a done, and it still isn't a done deal for any of us. But even at that point, I'm still trying to figure out, all right, God, is this what you want? Because like you said, this is the role I've always done for church ministry. I've always been kind of in a second chair position, not the leader. I've always been involved with the connection process and the assimilation process of people within a church. So this is new. And so constant prayer with that. But the last 2 years or so, there's been more intentionality about, all right, to be a lead pastor here, these are the things that Dave does. Him pulling me into certain important meetings has happened with individuals, whether it be conflict resolution or perhaps with the building stuff. And, to be prepared for like, all right, these are the plans that we have coming up. And we do so much of that collectively as a staff anyway, that I was already experiencing most of that, but he was just kind of inviting me in to those one-on-one meetings that he would have that now became a one-on-two meeting. And so we would have some of those conversations. And normally I didn't say a whole lot. I just sat there and listened and observed and kind of like saw how he handled those things. And so I got to watch a little bit and just kind of learn from him. And so that's been kind of the development process that he has done. And I have on occasion just said, hey, what are you thinking? Do you think that I could be the right person for this? And each step of the way, he has felt more and more confident. And I know that the elders have felt more and more confident that I could be that person, to the point where now they've decided to present me as that candidate.
Yeah. And it's good to hear. I mean, it isn't just Dave training you to be his replacement here. It's he really was pouring into you, going, I see something that God has in, like, God has placed this call in your life, and I'm going to pour into it. And if it's here, great. Like, we're going to benefit from this. Mm-hmm. And if it's not here, great. Somebody else is going to benefit from this, right? Because he saw something, and he sees something in you that he wants to continue to develop at this level. Yeah. So, which leads me kind of to my next questions. It's a 2-part question, and I want you to try to be as open, real, and honest with us as you can be. Mm-hmm. What are the things, assuming that you're confirmed into this role as lead pastor, what are the things that you are most looking forward to, and what are the things that terrify you the most?
I think I'm most looking forward to um, the new challenge in seeing how God uses me and our church moving forward. Like I said, this is new for me. I've never been the lead pastor of another church. I've gotten to work very closely with all of the lead pastors that I've served under, but ultimately the buck stops with that lead pastor in most formats. Even if, and I've worked in a church, I think both Lake Center and Beach Church were like this, where they were elder-led churches, meaning the buck stopped with the elders. Even in those churches, it really didn't stop with them. It stopped with the lead pastor, because everyone in the church would look at that lead pastor and they'd say, why'd you make that decision? Because that's the person who's speaking the most from stage. That's the person who people get to know more. And in this particular situation, the lead pastor is truly the person where the buck stops there until the elders decide that he's no longer fit for ministry. Right. That's the safeguard there, right? And so I'm excited for that, but in some ways that is it's a heavier weight. I wouldn't say I'm terrified by any of it, to be honest. I'm really not. But I do realize the significance of that, though, too. And I understand that. And I've talked with enough senior pastors to know that when you step into that role, it is a different feeling, because it is a different responsibility. And so in a lot of ways, I'm excited about it, though, because I do feel like God has been preparing me for this basically since birth almost. My parents were heavily invested in trying to equip me and my siblings for ministry. Not necessarily to be a lead pastor, but for ministry. But then when I get into ministry, all of the lead pastors have been very intentional about helping me grow as a leader. And each one I can see, they were like, you know what? You could be a lead pastor someday, and I want to help you get there. And so that was pretty awesome. And I think that it's kind of gotten me to this point. So that's why I feel confident about it. I know there's going to be challenges, though. Like, I know that just because I've had to go through those challenges with those lead pastors and just be the guy. I remember at Beach Church talking with Todd Elliott, our senior pastor, and saying, well, here are my thoughts, and this is what I would do. But ultimately, he had to make the decision.
Right.
And those decisions have great effects on people. And so I know that's a difference. But I am excited about that. I do and have always naturally liked to exist in more the big picture. I'm really excited about that. Of course, there are still day-to-day things that have to happen. Like, that's the case. But as a lead pastor, you do have the ability and the space to be able to dream a little bit more, to be able to cast vision a little bit more, to strategize a little bit more for the church as a whole, because you're not focused as much on the specific ministries that are accomplishing that bigger vision.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. That has always been the thing that has energized me most in my positions. I think the one thing that I'm really curious to see how it develops is, I've also noticed that with lead pastors, they don't typically have as much direct connection with the people of a church. That's weird for me. I'm going to probably try my best to not become I'm going to try my best to not become disconnected with the people of the church. But I also know that, again, the time and the energy that's focused on the bigger picture is going to be different than what it is now. So perhaps my time and availability to sit down and have lunch with someone is going to be different. I would suspect it is going to be a little bit different. So that is something I'm a little curious about. I wouldn't say nervous, but I'm just curious, like, how's that all going to shake out? I know that part of my role will be to invest in the staff and the elders and the deacons and the finance committee. Well, right now, I don't have to invest in those relationships a whole lot outside of like a peer relationship. You know, you and I, we go and grab lunch from time to time. We work closely together. We do that kind of stuff, but that's different. than the role that Dave plays in the lives of all the staff, because the lead pastor, ultimately, again, the buck stops there, and he needs to be able to help steer the ship and make sure that it's going down the right course and make just little corrections here and there to make sure we're all headed down the same path, right? I don't have to do that right now. And so that'll be a difference. But so I know, I think that it's really less about the amount of time spent with people. It's just who those people are might be a little bit different. Right now, I spend a lot of time with group leaders and people who are serving on the first impressions teams, and really just anybody who wants to take a next step in their faith. Like, hey, I want to get baptized. All right, well, let's go grab lunch.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to hire someone else who can do a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and that's the key is it's not that we're going to be abandoning those people.
No, not at all.
We're going to find somebody to step in to fill the functions that you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's going to be critical. There's no way that we will be able to do everything that we're currently doing at a high level if we decide, okay, Perry's going to be the lead pastor and
right,
the community life pastor. Like, that's just not possible. So, we're going to be looking for that next person and find someone who's highly gifted in those areas as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people wondering, because people just are curious. Assuming that you get confirmed and take over, what changes should people expect to see? Is there going to be something different? Are you going to come in and do something that is completely different?
Sure. I think that's a great question. And it would be a question that I would have if I were in their shoes. And the short answer is both, like yes and no, right? Obviously, Dave and I, all of you know, if you've been here a while, like Dave and I have different teaching styles. Like we're different people. You're going to see the bearded bald guy up there on stage more than the old guy with the goatee. You're probably going to hear less mountain stories and more sports analogies. Like, there's going to be a difference in that sort of thing. And honestly, I think that's probably the biggest difference that people are going to see. It's just, I'm going to be speaking more and he's going to be speaking less. That's probably the biggest thing that they'll see. When it comes to the overall mission and direction of our church, nothing's going to change. Like that, I came here because of the mission, right? So I'm all in for continuing to fix the brokenness of our world by connecting as many people to God, other people, and their God-given purposes in life. And so, are there going to be differences in how we do that? Probably. Do I have any like specific agenda right now to be like, yep, we need to change this and this and this? No. But at the same point, Dave and I are different people. And so there's probably going to be a little bit of a different flavor to some of the things. And just to be frank with everybody, like Dave has been a lead pastor for over 25 years.
Here. Over 40 years total.
Yeah, over 40 years total. I have never been a lead pastor. So it would be naive for any of us to think that I'm not going to make some sort of mistake along the way, that I'm not going to have to learn as this goes. But thankfully, Dave's still here to help be a mentor and a guide and someone I can turn to and say, hey, you've gone through this. Like, how should I handle this? We still have a board of elders who are there to help advise and and probably even most importantly, the staff team. The way we do things here, compared to some other churches, the pressure of leading for the lead pastor is significantly reduced.
Yeah.
I can provide some insights to worship ministry and some like general guidance of like, hey, I'd really like to see this, or the feel here, or hey, this song fits my message or something. Like I can do that. But you're going to handle like the overall mission and vision and direction of the worship ministry. Like I don't have to worry about, there's so many, I don't want to. Like, and that's something about my personality that I'm a delegator at heart. I am not a micromanager. I am not someone who wants to get in the weeds with all these different things. I want to find people who are equipped and let them do their things that they're gifted to do. I have never led a creative arts ministry. I've never led a kids ministry. I've barely ever led a student ministry, and that just happened. You guys were hired to do those things. And so I'm going to lean into that just like Dave has done. That's been a huge strength of ours. We're going to continue to be very collaborative, but we're also going to continue to try to do new and innovative things that will help us reach people for Jesus. That's not a change overall, but the specifics of what we're doing here as a church, we're constantly evolving and changing as a church. And so we're going to continue to attack our mission with as much boldness as we possibly can.
And I think people would want that. I
think so. I think that's why they're here, right?
Yeah, I hope that's what people want.
Yeah.
Is us to always be, chasing after and trying something to get the gospel out to people. So just to put people's kind of potential minds at ease, day one, you're not coming in, you're not cleaning house, you're not making radical changes. There's a mission that we're called to here, and we're all committed and highly devoted to that. And the reality is some people may not even notice a change. They'll be like, "Oh, I see Perry a little more," but we'll still see Dave preaching from time to time.
Yeah, I think functionally, really, I think most of the people of our church, the only real difference that they're going to notice is that I'm speaking more, Dave's speaking less, and there's some new guy hired to do what Perry was doing. Those are the things that I think they're going to notice the most, especially for the first year or so, because it's not, there isn't anything here that is so broken that it just needs to be corrected right away. I think we're doing a really nice job with what God has given us. We are constantly trying to improve. I mean, you and I and the rest of the staff, we sit there and critique what we do every single Sunday morning.
Every week.
Yeah, every single Sunday morning. And we're going to continue to do that. And then we have another meeting later on in the week where we try to grow as leaders, but we also think about the larger strategic initiatives that we have as a church, and we try to accomplish those together.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to do the best we can. And I am going to do the best that I can to help lead that, if confirmed.
Yeah. Good. Well, we're going to kind of wrap this up, Perry. I just kind of want to give you one more opportunity. If you have anything that you want to share with the people to kind of just let them hear your heart. Let them know really where you are and what your hope and your dream for the future of Connections is. And I'll kind of just let you kind of close this out, and then I'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, with that said, to anyone who's out there listening, I just want you to know that the love that we have as a church for you is not going to change. If anything, we hope that it grows. Our desire to help equip you for ministry, to do the things that God has called you to do for his kingdom, that's still going to be our goal. And we are excited about what the future has. I'm incredibly excited about it. But I just want you to know that we are not looking to make any major changes that are going to make our church feel like a totally different place. We are going to continue to attack the mission that God has given us. We're going to continue to try to accomplish that. And if you have any questions, though, if you have more questions about who I am, about my leadership style, or about where I see the church going, please don't hesitate to ask. Feel free to reach out to me. That's what this whole current month is about.
Yeah.
Is to give you all the space to do that and to understand who I am and who we are as a church. And so, as always, we are open to your questions and would love to be able to answer them.
Yeah, and we've also decided to take the month of February and devote it to prayer. This is an opportunity for us as a collective body to say, before we make any decisions, we need to be fully devoted to taking this before the Lord, committing to praying for our church, for the future, for the direction, for the leadership, for the choices that we have to make. We encourage you to join us in this month of prayer. All of February, we are sending out daily emails with prayers that we would love for you to join in with us. If you're not getting those emails, contact us on our website. Fill out the Connect card. We'll make sure you're going to get those. But we'd encourage you, join us in this month-long just dedication of prayer before we get into the point where we have to cast a vote of confirmation to bring Perry in as our lead pastor. We are excited for what God is doing here at Connections. We couldn't be more excited for the potential that he has that lays before us with this transition of leadership, and then the building project that we have that is, man, we are over halfway there.
Yeah.
I mean, we are so excited to see that you guys are excited too. And we encourage you to join us. If you're not a part of what we're doing here at Connections, we invite you to come and be a part of us. You can join us on Sunday mornings. We have 3 services available for you that starts at 8:20, 9:40, and 11 o'clock. We do live stream our 9:40 service. That starts at 9:25 with our pre-show, where we're going to talk about everything that's happening right here at Connections. It's the best way for you to hear all of your announcements. And then we're going to wrap it up after the service, sitting right here in these orange chairs, talking about everything that we experience on our post show. So we encourage you, either join us in person if you can, or join us online and be a part of what God is doing right here at Connections. As always, we do encourage you to ask your questions, whether it's something that you heard us talking about tonight, whether it's something you heard talked about on Sunday morning, or something that you're wrestling with currently in your own life. We would love for you to ask those questions. You can do that by going to our website, my3c.org, click on Ask a Question. All of those questions are submitted anonymously, so we don't know who you are. Hopefully that frees you up to ask the tough questions that you need to ask, and it gives us the opportunity to sit here on our Q&A and talk about those and answer those questions. If you need to contact us directly, please scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or go to our website and click on Connect. That's going to take you to our digital Connect card, where you can fill out all your information, and we will contact you back directly. Perry, thank you for joining us. We're excited to see what God has for you and your family in your future, and we believe that big things are on the horizon here, so we're excited for that here. We do want to let you know that here at Connections, we do love you, but more importantly, Jesus loves you, and we will see you guys next time.